Ozone Disco, Philippines. Monday night, March 18th, 1996. Timog Avenue, Quezon City, Philippines. The Ozone Disco sits on the second floor of a commercial building. It is a tiny space built to hold 35 people. That night, the club offers free entrance to celebrate the end of the school year. Over 350 students pack inside. Just before midnight, sparks shoot from the DJ booth ceiling. People think it is part of the show. Within seconds, fire spreads across the foam-covered walls. The DJ tries to warn everyone, but the microphone dies. In total panic, hundreds rush toward the only exit, a door that only opens inward. With hundreds pushing against the door, also, the windows are sealed with iron bars. 162 people die that night, most of them teenagers. Bodies are found piled waist-high in the corridor, burned and stuck together. For years after, locals nearby reported hearing faint disco music late at night and seeing shadowy figures dancing behind dark windows. A news camera crew sent to film inside the empty building noticed strangers standing behind them watching. The cameraman asked his assistant to go tell them to leave. The assistant walked toward them and tried to shout, but no sound came out of his mouth. Trembling, he ran back to the cameraman. They turned around. Nobody was there. The building was completely empty. Today, a 24-hour Filipino restaurant called Gura stands on the exact same ground. Before opening, its co-owner, the Philippines' most famous TV host Boy Abunda, personally spoke out loud to the spirits, asking for forgiveness and permission. After that, the paranormal activity reportedly stopped. RMS Queen Mary, United States, Long Beach, California. A 1,000-foot ocean liner sits permanently docked in the harbor, never sailing again. The RMS Queen Mary launched in 1936 as the most luxurious ship in the world, carrying celebrities like Winston Churchill, Clark Gable, and Audrey Hepburn across the Atlantic. Then World War II began. She was stripped of her glamour, painted grey, and became a military transport ship, earning the nickname the Grey Ghost. In October 1942, the Queen Mary accidentally collided with her own escort ship, the HMS Curaçao, off the coast of Ireland. The Queen Mary was 20 times larger than the cruiser. At full speed, she sliced straight through the smaller ship, cutting it in half within seconds. Sailors who survived the impact were thrown into the freezing ocean, but the Queen Mary's 4 massive propellers kept spinning at full speed, sucking men underwater and pulling them into the blades. Over 300 sailors died. The Queen Mary never stopped. She was under strict wartime orders to keep moving. Today, the Queen Mary is a floating hotel and one of the most haunted places in the world. In stateroom B340, guests report bedsheets pulled off, faucets turning on alone, and shadowy figures in the corner. The drained first-class swimming pool is haunted by a little girl named Jackie. Wet footprints appear around the empty pool, and her giggling is heard by visitors. Deep in the engine room, 50 feet below water, sits door 13, a massive watertight door that automatically seals shut during drills. In 1966, an 18-year-old crew member named John Pedder was caught inside the doorway when the door closed during a routine drill. It crushed him from his collarbone to his liver. Bhangarh Fort, India. In the Alwar district of Rajasthan sits a sprawling fort that was once a thriving city of over 10,000 people. Built in 1573, Bhangarh had grand palaces, busy markets, ornate temples, and thousands of homes. Then, seemingly overnight, the entire city was abandoned. No one has lived there since. 2 curses are said to have destroyed it. The first involves a holy man named Baba Balao Nath, who gave permission to build the fort on one condition: no building must ever cast a shadow on his home. A later ruler ignored the warning and raised the fort higher. The second curse is darker. A sorcerer named Singya became obsessed with the beautiful princess Ratnavati. Unable to win her love, he secretly enchanted a bottle of perfume oil at the marketplace with a love potion, planning for the princess to apply it to her skin and fall in love with him. But the princess sensed the trick. Instead of using it, she threw the bottle against a large boulder nearby. The love spell transferred to the boulder itself. The rock then rolled straight towards Singya and crushed him to death. With his dying breath, he cursed Bhangarh, declaring no soul would ever live there in peace. Within a year, the city was attacked, the princess was killed, and every inhabitant perished. Today, visitors report hearing whispers, seeing shadowy figures, and smelling perfume with no source. Locals claim those who have secretly stayed the night inside the fort have never come out alive. The Indian government has officially banned entry after sunset. Pudu Jail, Malaysia. In the heart of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, sits a piece of land soaked in over a century of suffering. Pudu Jail was built between 1891 and 1895 by the British colonial government, constructed on top of an ancient Chinese burial ground. The jail housed rapists and murderers for over 100 years. Cells had no light, just a small window the size of a shoebox and a heavy iron door. In 1895, a cholera epidemic swept through and hundreds of prisoners were left to die in their cells. During World War II, Japanese forces used it to torture Allied prisoners of war. The British buried Japanese soldiers on the grounds, and when the Japanese took over, they buried the British there, layer upon layer of bodies beneath the same soil. Prison guards reported seeing phantom prisoners still walking the corridors. A guard on night duty once saw a uniformed officer approaching, turned to salute, the figure raised its hand and vanished. Blood-curdling screams were regularly heard coming from empty cell blocks. The jail was demolished in 2012, and a mall called La Laporte finally opened in 2022. Visitors immediately reported strange experiences. A glass door on the second floor was filmed opening and closing on its own with no wind or anyone near it. Shoppers describe an unexplained cold and heavy feeling throughout the building. The old prison gate still stands at the mall entrance, the only reminder of what this ground truly is. Paris Catacombs, France. Beneath the streets of Paris lies a tunnel system stretching over 200 miles underground. It was originally built as a limestone quarry in the 12th century. By the late 1700s, Paris had a serious problem. Its cemeteries were overflowing. Bodies were piling up so fast they were contaminating the city's water supply and spreading disease. The solution? Between 1785 and 1787, workers dug up 6 million corpses from graveyards across the city and transferred them into the tunnels. At night, under black cloth hidden from the residents. Workers arranged the skulls and bones into decorative walls. At the entrance, a sign still reads today, "Stop, you are entering the Empire of Death." Only 1.5 miles of the tunnels are open to the public. The remaining 200 miles are completely off limits and completely dark. The most famous ghost is Philibert Aspert, a hospital doorman who wandered into the tunnels in 1793 during the French Revolution searching for a hidden liqueur cellar. His body was found 11 years later, still wearing his hospital ring. He is the only person with an official grave inside the catacombs. Explorers report a suffocating heaviness near his memorial and claim to see a shadowy figure groping through the dark, still searching for a way out. In 2004, police exploring the restricted tunnels discovered a fully functioning secret cinema carved into the stone, wired with electricity and cameras recording their every move. When they returned a day later, everything was gone. Aokigahara Forest, Japan. At the base of Mount Fuji in Japan sits a 30 square kilometer forest that grows on top of hardened lava from an ancient volcanic eruption. The trees are so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground. The lava rock beneath absorbs all sound, making the forest completely unnaturally silent. Compasses and phones stop working inside. It is almost impossible to find your way out without marked trails. For centuries, this forest was used for a practice called ubasute. When food was scarce, families would carry their elderly parents deep into the forest and leave them there to die alone. According to Japanese belief, those who die with pain, anger, or sadness become yurei, vengeful spirits that cannot leave. The forest is said to be full of them. Locals believe these spirits wander the trees, pulling in those who are lost or suffering. In 1960, a popular Japanese novel called Kuroi Jukai, meaning Black Sea of Trees, romanticized suicide in the forest, telling the story of two lovers who ended their lives there. Since then, Aokigahara became one of the most used suicide locations in the world. The number of deaths became so disturbing that in 2010, the Japanese government stopped publishing the yearly count. Once a year, police and volunteers enter the forest on what locals call the body hunt, searching for those who never came out. Searchers report hearing high-pitched screams and wailing coming from deep within the trees where nobody is found. Today, signs are placed throughout the forest, quietly urging those who enter to reconsider ending their own lives. S21 Prison, Cambodia. In 1975, the Khmer Rouge regime under Pol Pot converted a high school in Phnom Penh into a secret prison, codenamed S21. Locals who worked nearby called it the place where people went in but never came out. Between 1975 and 1979, an estimated 17 to 20,000 people were brought here, men, women and children. They were shackled to iron bed frames, starved, and systematically tortured into signing false confessions before being sent to the nearby killing fields to be executed. Prisoners were kept alive just long enough to be useful. When they were no longer needed, they were marched out at night, blindfolded, and killed. Out of nearly 20,000 prisoners, only 7 adults survived. The Khmer Rouge photographed every single prisoner upon arrival. Today, thousands of those black and white faces cover the walls of the museum, staring back at every visitor who walks through. Some show confusion, some show terror, some show nothing at all. Neighbors outside the building report hearing moaning and the rattling of chains from inside the empty rooms at night. Security guards working night shifts report seeing figures standing motionless in the dark cells, disappearing when approached. Tat Tak School, Hong Kong. Tat Tak School opened in 1931 as one of Hong Kong's first village schools in Pingshan, New Territories, growing to over 700 students at its peak before closing in 1998. The building has been abandoned ever since. The land beneath it carries centuries of death. In 1899, around 500 villagers were slaughtered during the British takeover of the New Territories and buried in mass graves on the hillside surrounding the school. Then, in 1941, Japanese soldiers massacred locals and used the school grounds as a burial site, layer upon layer of the dead, beneath the same ground where children once learned to read and write. The most haunting legend is the woman in red. According to local stories, a female teacher was sexually assaulted and took her own life by hanging herself in the girls' bathroom while wearing a red dress. On September 10, 2011, 12 secondary school students broke in as a dare. Inside, they heard ghostly footsteps and scraping sounds on the walls. Then, they saw her, a woman in a long red dress. 3 girls immediately fainted and became hysterical, biting and scratching others. One boy lost complete control, pinching his own neck, biting people around him, screaming about visions of people dying horribly. He had to be physically restrained and rushed to hospital. Doctors diagnosed acute psychosis. Many believe he was possessed. Alright folks, which one is the most terrifying? If you're from any of these countries, let me know in the comments what stories you know about these places. I want to hear from the locals. See you in the next one.